The engine hummed, a steady, comforting sound in the stillness of the night. It was a familiar tune to Lisa, one that she had come to associate with freedom and peace. The headlights cut through the darkness, casting long shadows on the trees that lined the road. The beams of light seemed to chase away the unknown, creating a path for her to follow. Behind the wheel, a young woman named Lisa drove with quiet confidence. Her hands gripped the steering wheel firmly, her eyes focused on the road ahead. She had always found solace in these solitary drives. The night was dark, the road ahead seemingly endless. The asphalt stretched out before her, a ribbon of black cutting through the landscape. It was as if the road itself was inviting her to keep going, to explore what lay beyond the horizon. Lisa didn't mind. She loved driving at night, the solitude a comfort. The quiet allowed her to think, to reflect on her day and her life. It was her time to unwind, to let go of the stresses that weighed her down. Tonight, though, something felt different. A prickle ran down her spine, an unsettling sensation that she couldn't quite shake. It was as if the night itself was whispering secrets, secrets that she wasn't sure she wanted to hear. She shook it off, focusing on the road ahead. Determined not to let her imagination get the best of her, she took a deep breath and tightened her grip on the wheel. Lisa turned up the radio, hoping to find a good song. Music always had a way of calming her nerves, of making her feel less alone on these long drives. Only static met her ears. She flipped through the channels, but the result was the same. The white noise filled the car, adding to her growing sense of unease. Strange. She tried her phone, but there was no signal. The screen remained blank, refusing to connect to the outside world. Great, she muttered, feeling a knot of unease in her stomach. The isolation was starting to get to her, the realization that she was completely cut off from everything and everyone. She was completely cut off, alone. The night seemed to close in around her, the darkness pressing in from all sides. She took another deep breath, trying to steady her nerves, and kept driving into the unknown. The highway gave way to a narrow, winding road, one that seemed to disappear into the shadows of the dense forest ahead. Tall, dark trees pressed in from either side, their branches like skeletal fingers reaching for the car, creating an almost tunnel-like effect. The air grew heavy with fog, the silence broken only by the hum of the engine and the occasional cry of an owl, echoing through the night. Lisa shivered, pulling her jacket tighter around her. The cold seemed to seep through the car, chilling her to the bone. She had been driving for hours, her eyes straining to see through the darkness. Where was she? The road seemed endless. This road wasn't on any map she remembered. She glanced at the old, worn map on the passenger seat, but it offered no answers. The further she drove, the denser the forest became, the trees closing in as if trying to swallow the road whole. The trees seemed to close in, their branches scraping against the car like claws, leaving faint scratches on the windows. Lisa's heart pounded in her chest, each beat echoing in her ears. She gripped the steering wheel tighter, her knuckles white. She wished she had taken the main road. The regret gnawed at her, but now it was too late to turn back. She had to keep going. The headlights cut through the darkness, guiding her forward, even as uncertainty loomed ahead. The headlights flickered, momentarily plunging the road into darkness. Lisa gasped, her hand tightening on the steering wheel. As the lights sputtered back to life, she saw it. A figure, standing by the side of the road. Shrouded in mist, it was hard to make out any details. Lisa's breath caught in her throat. Was it a person? An animal? Something else? She slowed the car, her eyes glued to the figure. As she got closer, it seemed to melt back into the mist, disappearing as quickly as it had appeared. Section 4. Static. Lisa's heart hammered against her ribs. She wanted to stop, to turn around and go back the way she came, but something told her that was a bad idea. The air grew colder, sending a fresh wave of goosebumps down her arms. The silence was oppressive, broken only by the sound of her own ragged breathing. She glanced at the radio, hoping for some distraction. The screen was blank, filled with static. The same static that had filled the airwaves earlier. It felt wrong, like it was watching her. She quickly looked away, focusing on the road ahead. Section 5. Shifting shadows. The trees on either side of the road seemed to press closer, their shadows stretching out like grasping claws. They danced and writhed in the headlights, taking on monstrous shapes that sent shivers down Lisa's spine. Every time she thought she saw something in the shadows, a face, a figure, it would disappear as quickly as it had formed. Lisa gripped the steering wheel tighter, her knuckles white. Her fear was a living thing now, coiling in her stomach, squeezing the air from her lungs. She had to get out of this forest, she had to get somewhere safe. Section 6. The Girl in White. A flash of white caught Lisa's eye. She squinted, trying to make out what it was. The night was thick with fog, making it hard to see anything clearly. She slammed on the brakes, the car skidding to a stop. Her heart pounded in her chest as she gripped the steering wheel tightly. Standing in the middle of the road, bathed in the harsh glare of the headlights, was a young girl. She seemed out of place, almost ethereal. She wore a long white dress, her long dark hair obscuring her face. Lisa's blood ran cold. This was impossible. She had heard stories about this road, but she never believed them. There was no one out here. The road was supposed to be deserted at this hour. The girl slowly turned, her face pale and drawn. It was as if she was moving in slow motion, every movement deliberate and haunting. Her eyes, wide and dark, stared straight at Lisa, and then she smiled. It was a smile that sent chills down Lisa's spine. It wasn't a friendly smile. It was a smile that seemed to hold secrets dark and terrifying. It was cold, empty, and infinitely sad. A smile that spoke of lost hopes and dreams. It was a smile that spoke of death. Lisa screamed, her voice echoing in the stillness of the night. She knew she had to get out of there, but her body was frozen in fear.